Hello everyone, it's been a while since I've made a video, and oh boy have things changed in my life, but it's for the better. So, really quick, what I want this video to be about is now that I've been foster parenting for over 3 years, I want to talk about what I've learned as a result of foster parenting and really how it's helped me as a person to grow. So, has foster parenting been easy over these last 3 years? Oh, heck no, it has not been easy at all. I've had cops over at my home plenty of times over the past 3 years, and even the fire department too. And so, wow, it's been so hard. But I will say that even through all those difficult moments, it's been a learning experience. It's been a growing experience. Not just for me, but also for the community. So, one kind of example I want to give of this, of how it's been a learning and growing experience for the community as well, is in one of my new job now as a DRE. So I'm a director of religious education at my church. It's a very, you could say, a kind of prominent position. A lot of people, know me through that role. A lot of people interact with me through that role. Um, I have a free throw competition that's coming up soon. Basketball, free throw, and I have various people that are signing up for it. And one of the people that came in to sign up his son for it, he recognized me. And he asked me, how is that boy that, when I visited your house and that boy tried, starting a fire? He wanted to know. And that was 3 years ago. That was one of the very first kids I'd ever gotten in my home. And he told me about it. He said, "Man, that was one of the hardest calls I've ever been to as a firefighter." And talking to all my other guys as well, they all agree it was one of the hardest things that we had ever been called to. Of seeing this kid, and seeing how in our interaction with him, he could just flip on us so easily, someone that's so little, and how that's all he could know, that's all he could understand is this trauma and this abuse. And so, I'm sure he's been to many calls, and I'd never seen this guy in the 3 years since that happened, but he saw me. He recognized me because that call had a huge impact on him and on the other guys as well. And so there is this growing that all of us are doing. And it's just one of those things where um, it's hard. The experience really puts a person through the ringer, you know. It's one of those things where foster parenting, it'll either make you or it'll break you. And in my case, 3 years on, it's made me. I can tell that I'm a stronger person for it. I can tell I'm a more confident person. I can tell I'm someone who has this sense of I can work through anything, any problem. Just throw a problem my way, and I can work through it. You know, and that's not something that all people can develop as far as skill in life. Not even by the age of 40 or 50. You throw them a problem, and they can have anxiety. They can have panic attacks. They can sort of crumble and fall. But at the age of 29, foster parenting, because of all the challenges it's put me through, I've very definitely developed this sense of I can get through it. I can get through anything. Just throw any problem at me and I can get through it. We can get through it. All of us can get through it. There's quite a bit of confidence in that, and even a kind of leadership quality. Anyone who can hold their calm in the face of a challenge, in the face of a hurdle, that's ideally what you want to see in a leader. And so I've been able to develop all of these qualities as a result of just the challenges and the difficulties that have come by way of foster parenting. So, this said, I want to go ahead and talk about another element that's difficult, and how recently I've been able to overcome this, which is that it can be easy to feel like a failure as a foster parent, because what I've learned is you can't fix everyone, and the reality is you probably can't even fix most, right? You can help them get better, but better is relative to wherever they were at, and you can't necessarily fix them. And sometimes the problems, you take in kids, especially if you take older kids, which I've taken a lot of older kids. And so, especially when you take older kids, frequently their mentality is to just run away from all their problems. And so, even though you might be the person trying to give them consistency and trying to work through the problems, eventually it might get so big that they're trying to run away from it all. And they're trying to start over. And they're just trying to repetitively start over, even though they're not really sort of learning their lesson to prevent the bad things from chasing after them, right? But they want to keep having do-overs. And so a number of kids have left because of these kinds of things happening. And so it can easily lead one to feel like a failure as a foster parent. The reality is that they've learned something by being with you. They've learned something, and especially if you're putting out your best and you don't let the circumstances get to you and hold ill feelings against them, they can take something away from their experience with you, even if they keep trying to run away to the next place to try and have a do-over, a restart, because they don't know how to handle problems in either way. But whereas I live in southern Idaho, it can feel a lot worse, because where I live, I'm in a small town in southern Idaho. And so, where do these kids go? It's typically not somewhere close to me. And especially if they go to a facility. The facility that frequently they would go to if there's behavior issues, what have you, and that becomes part of the reason when they leave, it's 3 hours away. And so, is that conducive to visiting them very often or at all? No, it's not. And I've had kids that have left to completely different states. So is that conducive to seeing them again? No, it's not conducive to it. And so I've had, well over a dozen kids come through my home, but pretty much by and large, if they leave or they return home, they go somewhere where I can't see them anymore. I had one kid I really liked. I would have loved to stay in touch with him. Went to Oregon, and so I don't see him. So probably 12.5 kids that I've had some sort of connection to or another, whether it be a short term or several months or much longer. Out of 12.5 kids, one I was able to stay in contact with consistently. Not just a one-time kind of ordeal, which I've had that, but I've been able to consistently see afterwards. In fact, that particular kid, I'm not going to give you his name, but you can actually be, sort of familiar with who it is, because I do have a video of him on my channel. So it's the hoverboard spelling video. You can see him as a fun little thing because he was learning spelling in school. And so I just made a game out of it to have him use a little squirt gun and spell out the different words on the cement with water while riding around in his hoverboard. So you're welcome to watch that one. So that particular child, I was so fortunate that he didn't go far away at all. He just went 15 minutes away, and the mother has allowed me to consistently see him. In fact, the last time I saw him, as of the time of this video, is less than, well, a little bit over a week actually. A little bit over a week ago is when I last saw him. And so that was beneficial to me because, previously I've had all these kids that have left and I haven't really been able to see them. And that's been emotionally difficult for me. And so now at least I have one that I really care about. I feel a lot of affection for this this little guy. He's a bit of a drama queen, but I absolutely love him. And so the fact that I'm able to still see him, that has been emotionally repairing for me. After all these, they disappear and I never hear from them again. So many that's happened, and I have one where I can still be a part of his life. And then some other experiences too. Like one of my first children that, the one that, started the fire. I was able to go to his birthday party. Unfortunately, that new relationship of being at home with grandma, he still needed more work. But at least he was able to spend his birthday with his grandmother. I was able to go see him. All these things really help with that pain of them having disappeared. And then another thing that happened too was I've had multiple 17-year-olds in my home about to turn 18. One of the 17-year-olds decided to move away to be closer to friends. They managed to find a home for him. Another one turned 18 and then psychologically had a real downturn. And I had a 1:30 a.m. visit by police to check on him. And they took him to the hospital. And they said they need to watch over him for a while, make sure he wouldn't hurt himself. And the nearest hospital I could handle that was about 2.5 to 3 hours drive away. And they took him, and that was that. And, just in that particular instance, I won't go into the details in this video. But, I could tell he was definitely scapegoating, me, trying to put all his problems on me. It's all my fault. And so, under those circumstances, it was pretty obvious that it wasn't going to be beneficial to anyone to try and get him back in my home. Didn't see what he wanted at all anyways. But I just let him scapegoat me. Put all his problems on me. He pushed me out. And so, when the problems come back again, you can't say it's me. It's hard. It's difficult. But it is what it is. You learn through these things, right? So, all these things, once again, can kind of make a person feel like a failure, kind of make me feel like a failure. But recently what's happened is it feels like I've been able to finally do it the proper way. So I took in another 17-year-old, and he's become 18 now. He's 18. And I'm not dealing with all the same problems. Do I have problems? Yes. There are plenty of problems with this particular kid. I think the biggest thing is just simply that there's a real slowness to grow up, a real slowness to develop responsibility. And he's very stubborn, and he creates problems in many places, whether it be in work, because I have, been able to get him some temp jobs over the summer. So we've had some difficulties there with his relationship with coworkers, and trying to just leave the job in the middle of the day without letting his supervisor know, and just weird behaviors I've had to work with him on and teach him some life skills here. But, additionally, he kind of went from a kid who didn't want to drive at all to he's got a learner's permit. I purchased an old vehicle. I've had to do a number of repairs to it, but I have a second vehicle now for him to drive. And I've been, going around with him, and that's a really crazy experience because he tends to miss stop signs. So it's a very on edge experience because he can miss stop signs, and he is not the best at keeping his lane. And so I'm riding like this in the car almost. But we're working on it. We're developing those skills because he needs it for southern Idaho. There's no public transport here. Can't even rely on Uber to get you anywhere. And even bicycling, there's a huge limitation on jobs if you're stuck to that form of transit, because a lot of jobs are going to be fairly distant on roads that are not built for bicycles. So it was a really good thing to get him from the mentality of, no, I'm not going to drive, I'm never going to drive, I don't ever want to, I don't need to now he's learning. He's, working on getting the license, and I've got a vehicle for him. And so it's been a huge sense of progress. And so he went from, this state of feeling like there's all these failures to a state of feeling like there's all this progress. And so that feels really, really good. It feels so good. And so I feel like I'm at a point where I can finally start to feel like I've accomplished something in foster care. I've talked before about where I wanted to be done, but the problem is I didn't necessarily feel like I had accomplished something. But now I feel like I have, because a child that I cared very dearly for, that I loved very much, that little Hispanic kid, I'm able to still see him consistently and see him grow even though he's with his mother. And this teenager, I'm able to, maybe I can't work out every kink, maybe always for the whole entirety of his life, he will have some sort of problem with 50% of the people that walk on the planet. Just not getting along well with people. And that's always going to cause problems. But at least I can get him on his own 2 feet. I can learn how to do work. I can get him to learn how to drive. I can get it to where he's not dependent and he's not homeless. And so that would be an accomplishment. That would be, real feel good kind of a thing after all the difficulties, all the challenges. So you can't fix every child. You can make progress. You can't fix everyone. And the fact that I can finally feel like there's I know that there's accomplishments because I can see the progress, that the relationship hasn't been cut, so I can't see what kind of seeds have been planted, what kind of sort of watering to help them grow has happened. Now I can kind of see consistently, a child that had been in my home, and see how that relationship between me and him has helped him grow. And having a teenager where I can see that there's this progress happening and developing these life skills, it feels good, and I can finally feel like, all right, I've accomplished something. And so it is my intent that after I can get this particular teenager on his own, that is it for me. I'll have kind of a happy ending, you could say, that I finally have accomplished what I've come to do. But, more than just that sense of I've finally come and accomplished what I want to do, what I set out to do. There's another kind of accomplishment as well that's happened, interiorly to me. Once again, that sense of that confidence. I noticed that in my new job as a DRE. You have to understand that, working for I'm Catholic, so working for the Catholic Church, it's not necessarily, or any church really for that matter, it's not necessarily an ideal job that a lot of people have. It's not an incredibly high paying job. Then on top of that, everyone has their opinions over how things should be done. And I'm in charge of the religious ed. I'm in charge of the classes and the requirements for people to receive their sacraments in the Catholic Church. And so as a result, you can have different people with their own different opinions. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult. Recently I had action email. So this is all about me changing the time of a class for some teenagers. And she couldn't teach that class. And I said, it's okay. I'm going to teach it. But, oh, wow, this gal wanted to teach it. She thought that she should be there because her daughter was in it. She wanted to be the teacher. And so the fact that I moved the time to a time that she didn't find acceptable, where she couldn't do it, later on a Sunday. It's still on a Sunday, but it's at a later time on a Sunday. And she would not do that. And oh boy, did I have to hear, from her. But what's interesting is even though, in these kind of cases where people create this drama, and it can be stressful. And, definitely these times you wonder, why do I have this job that doesn't pay all that great to deal with all the stress of the people? What's interesting is, as a result of foster parenting, as a result of dealing with teenager after teenager after teenager that I'm going to be blunt about it, exhibit very similar characteristics of they'll do anything that they can, say anything they can, create whatever hype and drama with social worker, with CASA worker, with whomever to get what they want. That now when I encounter that in work, right? Someone is trying to create drama with myself and with the priest and trying to get their parents to create the same kind of a drama to get what they want. It's interesting that, all this sort of 3 years of dealing with this with foster kids, and it's interesting. I do not bend. I've learned my lesson. I've learned not to bend. I've learned to be, you could say strict, but I don't think strict is the best word. Perhaps firm. I've learned to be very firm. And at the same time as I've learned to be very firm, I notice that, because I have different circumstances like this that happen with various different people, and I can kind of see a trend that eventually they just learn to respect me. They learn to respect my position. They learn to respect my authority. They learn to respect, my responsibilities. And that's the power of these skills I've learned as being a foster parent, of just being firm, just not bending to all the chaos that someone might throw at you to try and get their way. That the end result is that respect for my position, for my authority, for, what I'm responsible for. So all these things I've learned, I've developed, they've helped me grow. And so looking back, 3 years of foster parenting, wow, was so hard, but I've grown so much from it. I've grown so much, and I feel like finally, with all the different feelings of defeat that I've had over the years, that finally I can have a sense of I've accomplished something. I am still accomplishing something, right? I still have a teenager in my home, an 18-year-old. We're getting him on his own. We're getting him on his feet. He still has a year of high school to finish up. But we're accomplishing something. We're getting him able to live life on his own, not be homeless. I'm accomplishing something. I'm still seeing that child who's still growing up, who spent many months living with me, and now I can still get to have weekend visits periodically with him. There's just this lovely sense of something's been accomplished, something's still been accomplished, and it's transformed me. It's built me up. It's caused me to grow as a human being. And so it's been a powerful experience. Been a very difficult experience. And once I get my current teenager on his own, I'll be happy to be done. No more. By that point, I'll probably be 4.5. Hopefully not much beyond that years of foster parenting experience. And I can say, all right, I'm happy to go back to those things that I could enjoy as a single person. That ability to go travel and to go do things. So that's where I'm at. And I just want to share that with all of you, that it can definitely be worth it all, worth all the chance, worth all the hardship. Just don't let it tear you down. Just let it build you up. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you've all considered this video to be very, very beneficial. You have a wonderful day.